Hello. Thanks for being here. So I don't know how long this will go tonight. It's kind of impromptu. Apologize for people that normally watch me on D Live. It's giving me problems tonight. So you find me on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope. You can also hear my dog barking in the other room because it's thunderstorming. They don't like the thunder. I'm not particularly fond of it myself, but I don't yell and scream like an uncivilized jerk like my dogs when it's thunderstorming. Check out the video I just did. That's what this live stream is going to be about, except I'm elaborating more. Hard to keep up with the news today, right? The Democrat utopia. When I say Democrat, I don't mean the person down the street that's a Democrat, my friends, things like that. I mean the people running the party. And it's hard to fit a title into a YouTube video or something like this live stream because you only have so many characters. Labels are difficult, as I was saying on my live stream yesterday. So let's talk about exactly what I mean. It's more of a problem of the establishment. And there are certainly establishment people on the right that fit this bill. Your John McCain's, your Mitt Romney's, etc. They would fit in with this as well. But basically, the entire establishment Democratic Party is the mouthpiece for this. And that's where this is coming from. So that's what I'm referencing. If you're watching this in retrospect, I'll just give you a little what's going on right now, what that video is about. We have the riots in Minneapolis last night where they overtook a police station. This is brought on by the media and the Democrats and this sort of cultural Marxist ideology that America is racist. That's what the Democrats do. They're identitary politics. So they break us up based on our race, based on our gender, based on our religion, based on our sexual preference. And then they use those divisions. If you check out the video I did 2 days ago, you can see a video about a man named Tony Timpa. Tony Timpa was a white man who was schizophrenic who called the police on himself in Dallas in 2016. The police showed up, put their knee on his back while he was handcuffed, kept him there for about 13 minutes as they joked about how they could potentially be killing him, mocked him because he has schizophrenia, laughed at him the entire time, and they did kill him. That's exactly what happened. Those police didn't face any sort of criminal punishments whatsoever. Yet there was no riots. CNN and the New York Post, or the New York Times and the Washington Post and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Colin Kaepernick and Ice Cube and Ice-T, none of them said that we should fight back against the police over them. None of them said that this was evidence that the police hated white people. They were totally silent on it. If they did report it, it was just a regular blurb on their site and that was it. Yet one instance of this person, George Floyd, which I do believe he was murdered, and all of a sudden all of that stuff's on the table. That's indicative of the country being racist. We have a country with over 300 million people with over 800,000 law enforcement officers. You could literally take any demographic you want and find a video of law enforcement behaving poorly to someone of that demographic. So if your goal is to foster racial division or sexual orientation division, etc., it's easy to do. And so when you tell people this, it's not, look, one of the reasons I talk on my show all the time, I criticize the Republicans and I say that they've lost control of the narrative. What do I always say? It's four groups. It's the mainstream media, Silicon Valley, which I'll get to in a second with Twitter. It's, entertainment industry, Kaepernick, Ice Cube, Ice-T, and then the other one's academia. That's what's going on. Go through academia, K through 12, all the way through graduate school and doctoral school. They are indoctrinating people. They've been doing it for decades that the country is racist, blah, 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 blah. White people are terrible. White people are evil. If you have money, you're terrible. You're evil, etc. They've been pushing this cultural Marxism. When you tell people that enough, they start to believe it. Just like I said, when you tell people Republicans and Trump supporters are Nazis long enough, people will believe it and they'll start using violence against them. That's exactly what we're seeing. So there's a mishmash of rioters, domestic terrorists, I call them. And that would be people that are upset about George Floyd's death, but that's few and far between. There are legitimate people upset about Floyd's death, but they're more peaceful protesters. Even though I might disagree with them on their racial connotations that's been beaten their head, I have no problem with them peacefully protesting. I have no problem with them being outraged. I think that their anger is misdirected. It doesn't prove that it's a racist country, but that's neither here nor there. The actual rioters and domestic terrorists, there's few and far between that could give two cares about George Floyd. They just want an excuse to riot. So of that group, you then have people that are just opportunists that want to steal stuff or have fun and LARP and be in a riot. You got that group. And then you got what you admit from the police chief, that you had people bussing in. A lot of white people there. A lot of Antifa types there, right? Probably don't live in that neighborhood. The police admit that. And they're there because they are political terrorists. They are domestic terrorists. If you look up the FBI definition of terrorism, it talks about using violence and intimidation tactics on individuals or government property to achieve personal or political goals. That's exactly what Antifa is. That's what this is. It's domestic terrorism. And it's been pushed. We've seen this ever since Charlottesville, even before that with Berkeley, how the left, the Democrats, the media, they like to either pay lip service to Antifa or ignore them. And I've been saying for years, it's going to get worse and worse because it's emboldening people. When you tell everyone white people are racist, business owners are terrible, the police are all racist, this country's racist, you tell them that over and over, and then you see people start to riot and no one's ever held to account. In fact, the rioters are praised again and again. That encourages people to say, hey, I want to riot as well. That's exactly what we're seeing. That's the majority of what's going on. Now, these rioters, or domestic terrorists as I call them, have personal responsibility and they should be held accountable for their decisions. But you can see how the Democrats and the media have set the goal to cause this stuff to happen. They've cheered it on. They want the division. They want the destruction of the middle class. So that's story number one. Story number two that jumps right off on that. Did you know that as I speak right now, the White House is locked down? It's gated because of protesters outside it. We'll see how violent it gets. Hopefully not much. But then you also heard, 7 people shot in Kentucky in riots last night, protests last night. You had incidents in Phoenix, incidents in Denver where people were shot. I think I already said that one. All sorts of places. New York City had issues, DC's having issues, and it's going to continue. Houston, I've heard, because it's successful. They get this, they're noble heroes. Look at these riders. They're real patriots. That's the lip service. So there you go. You like to see your city burning? You like to see police forced out, even if you disagree with some of the actions of police, which I absolutely agree that it is a few bad cops, and our police forces I've talked about for years should be doing more to weed out those bad cops. Absolutely agree with that. But is this the answer? We're going to burn things down? I'll get to some information here later to tell you exactly more of my thoughts. So that's, look out. There's your Democrat utopia right now. Look out and see your city on fire. There you go. That's the establishment Democrats for you. And then let's not forget the COVID lockdowns were a lie. The Democrats pushed this. They lied. They used it to push in their racial crap, their Green New Deal crap. That's what they've used it for. We've spent over $9 trillion, more than that if you consider the $6 trillion created in Fed liquidity. Yeah, the blue wall of silence is hard to break. I absolutely agree with that. But there are a lot of good cops as well. The same is true. The reason that it's uniquely bad with police is because they have authority over us. The same's true, though, of the wall of silence when it comes to politicians, and they let corruption go. So, yeah, it's hard to break. I agree with that. But literally 95% of the country was on board with, yeah, that cop's a murderer. He should be charged. And instead, as always happens, the Democrats and their show, they're not interested in actually getting justice and to the truth. They're interested in exploiting the crisis to get political power and to cause division. And just like with all these other situations, before Black Lives Matter, there was a big movement in this country with people of all shades, of all ethnicities saying, hey, we don't like police brutality. But they made it racial, and they said, if you're white, you can't comment on it. And I was talking with the person just on Twitter before I came on here that seriously was arguing that white people should not be allowed in Minneapolis right now. And they don't think that's a racist statement whatsoever. If you're white, you shouldn't be there. I mean, that's insanity. Imagine flipping that. I don't think black people should be allowed in Philadelphia right now because there's violence. Imagine saying that and believing it and thinking, but I'm morally superior to you. How dare you say I'm racist? Just because I want to keep people out of certain locations based on their skin color doesn't mean I'm racist. That's how insane these people are. So yeah, we have with the lying with COVID. They supported the lockdowns. They used it for their agenda. Now we know that it's coming out that, yeah, it's absurd as well as racist. Now we know that it's coming out that as I told you from the get-go, that the numbers were being exaggerated, that there was no evidence that the lockdowns would solve. ABC actually reported that 21 states that had almost no lockdown or far less of a lockdown and opened up way earlier, there is no evidence whatsoever from those 21 states that opened earlier that their situation with COVID is any worse whatsoever than the states that stayed locked down more. Even ABC's reporting that. The CDC's been forced to admit, okay, originally we thought that the infected fatality rate would be around 2%, but in reality it's around 0.26%, which puts it about on par with the 1958 influenza. And then when you further look at the numbers and you realize that almost 50% of the deaths are coming from nursing homes, which were directly affected because of policies of these same leaders telling us we needed the lockdowns. So people like Tom Wolf, people like Cuomo, people like Whitmer, these Democratic governors that force COVID patients into nursing homes, knowing that it would spread. And then when it particularly spreads and kills people, saying, oh, see, people are dying. That proves we were right to do the lockdown. So we're now finding out we've been finding out if you listen to me, but we're finding out today how much of a lie that was. So all the lockdowns, your Bill of Rights thrown out the window, just like that on the whim. There's your establishment Democrat utopia right there. City burning, rights eliminated, just like that. No problem. Let's move on. We have Twitter censoring the President of the United States. With all of the stories that I'm talking about, the Democrats' big brain take today was, Trump used the word thug, that proves he's a racist. So they're not concerned about, actual black communities being burnt to the ground. They're not concerned, about the First Amendment being suspended based on a lie through COVID. They don't care about any of that. They're upset that Trump said thug, and they're trying to make it seem like Trump said he wants to shoot black people with the National Guard. That's not what he said, but we see that a day after Trump signed the executive order saying that we should eliminate these 230 protections. Basically, for those of you who don't know, and I talked about this months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, that this is what we should do. Social media companies have a protection that says that basically they can't be held liable as a publisher for stuff that you publish on their website. And that makes sense. Like if some lunatic gets on Facebook and says, I think people of this ethnicity should be punched, Facebook themselves shouldn't be held accountable, particularly because there's so much going on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter. It's all the same, that it'd be hard for them to find each and every tweet or each and every post. So I totally understand that. But when they start censoring people for political bias reasons, which all of these Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc., they're all doing it, then they're no longer just publishers, or they're no longer just a platform, they're publishers. They're specifically publishing content that they want. So implicitly, when Twitter, for example, says, we're going to pull down Trump's tweet that says law enforcement should deal with the violent protesters and domestic terrorists, I would call them, we think that's incitement of violence. But we're going to leave up blue checkmark after blue checkmark that says we should fight back against the police, Ice Cube, Ice-T. We should harm this actual police officer. We should burn down the White House. All of these were big brain takes that you saw from the left. They got to stay up. Those tweets got to stay up. So this is implicitly Twitter saying, look, we understand on our platform that we have a duty and a responsibility on what we publish. And that's why we're removing Trump's tweet, because we think it's incitement to violence. When you say that, then you're implicitly saying, we also know that there is incitement of violence coming from the left, but we have decided that that incitement is okay. So I hope that every single person who lost a business or a home to any of these riots in any city, sue Twitter to the full extent of the law. Try to find lawyers that will take your case. Push it as far as you can. Bankrupt them if possible. That's what they get. I don't think they should have been held to this account if they were trying their best to be even-handed and things slip through the cracks once in a while that were incitement of violence. But when they're willfully taking away incitement of violence only on one political side, which isn't even incitement to violence, and they're allowing it on the other, they should be held accountable for what they're allowing up there. So there you go. Cities burning down. Your First Amendment rights taken away, your livelihood taken away based on lockdowns that were a lie. Censorship of your opinions. There's your establishment Democratic utopia. Vote Democrat. And then let's go to the fifth story that's breaking today. Watch Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff and all these so-called journalists in the Democratic propagandist mill that's not really media, it's just propagandists for the establishment and the intel communities. Watch them read the very transcripts that you yourself could read with your own eyes and claim that it says the exact opposite of what it actually says. Because that's what's happening. So, for example, Swalwell's been arguing with Richard Grinnell, who was the interim, what was the position? I can't remember, but you know who I'm talking about with Grinnell, the interim director of national intelligence, who released a bunch of information showing that Adam Schiff and Swalwell that were telling you, we've seen proof of the collusion, we've seen proof that Trump and his team are guilty. They lied. And so they're releasing these transcripts on Flynn. Why is it that Swalwell and Schiff, why all of a sudden are they so against transparency? Oh, they don't want the American people to see what's actually in the transcripts. And then Swalwell's like, release the actual transcripts or else blah, blah, blah. And Grinnell's like, okay, yeah, they're coming, which they came out today. And what do they show? They show, drum roll please, what I've been telling you on this channel ever since I started out, that the Mueller team and the intelligence agents under FBI, under Obama, lied. And they railroaded Flynn. I did a video almost 2 years ago when the 302s, for those of you who don't know, a 302, for some reason, the FBI doesn't have this. They don't have a smartphone where they could record conversations. So we have to rely on people like, Peter Strzok, who could smell Trump supporters at Walmart and needs an insurance policy to stop Trump from winning the election. We have to rely on his notes. Well, even his notes that were released, I showed you 2 years ago that the notes said, hey, we asked Flynn, did you talk to this Russian Kislyak about sanctions? And he was like, no, I don't remember that. And they're like, are you sure you didn't talk to him about sanctions? And he was like, I don't recall that. Are you sure you didn't talk to him? They asked 3 times. And the third time he says, that conversation could have happened, but I don't remember. And I told you back then, if we charged everyone with a crime that went in front of the FBI or Congress and said, I don't recall, Hillary Clinton would be in jail, Rod Rosenstein would be in jail, James Comey would be in jail, Brennan would be in jail, Clapper would be in jail, pretty much anyone who ever testifies in front of Congress or in front of the FBI. Everyone says at some point, I don't recall. I'm sorry, you're under arrest then. That's what he said. That's what Flynn said then. Well, it turns out he was right. Now that we see the transcripts, and I told you this from the beginning, Flynn's big sin. This was apparently why we were supposed to all freak out. Flynn's the incoming national security advisor. This is what the left wanted you to freak out about. He contacted his counterpart in Russia and said, hey, I know Obama just expelled a bunch of diplomats. Let's not have a tit for tat and where this escalates. Let's try to leave cooler heads prevail. By the way, we have a common enemy in Islamic terrorism. We'd like to work together and work that out. That's it. That's the insane, bloodthirsty, warmonger Trump administration they'd have you believe. That was his crime, trying to have peaceful relationships with Russia. Can't have that. That's the Democrats, the party of peace. Now, it was okay for Obama, for example, to ship billions of dollars in pallets of cash to Iran in the middle of the night. That was fine. It was okay for John Kerry to then, when he's not even a member of an incoming administration, to go to Iran to undermine Trump's orders as just a civilian. That was okay. But Flynn needed to be wiretapped. He needed to be unmasked. He needed to have his information leaked to the press. He needed to be attacked by the press. He needed to be railroaded by Comey and the FBI and Peter Strzok and Podenka. He needed to have McCabe write a memo that said, what are we trying to do? Lie, get this guy caught in a lie to get him fired or arrested? All of that needed to happen. And why? What did he do? We tried to make sure that we weren't escalating with the nuclear superpower. That's how insane these people are. That's what's going on. Let me check the, just the comments here real quick. Yeah, I agree with you, Anon. Like, it does seem like there's something coming. It does. Now we can see that actually said that. But you wouldn't know if you go read Eric Swalwell's Twitter or Adam Schiff's Twitter. They're looking at these same transcripts. They're literally looking at the transcripts that you could look at and they're saying, oh yeah, see, that proves that they did something. That proves that Flynn lied. What are you talking about? First, you admit he said, I don't recall. Second, Mueller said specifically in their indictment of Flynn that he lied about sanctions. The transcripts of the call show he didn't mention sanctions. He was mentioning the expulsion of diplomats. Third, he wasn't even asking Russia to de-escalate. He was asking Russia to just reciprocate so that the U.S. wouldn't be forced to escalate. Think about it. You're right. You got all these leaders, but then the people underneath them. So you got Putin and you got Trump or Obama, whatever, right? And then you got people underneath them, and they're talking like person to person. Like, look, I know you got to do something. We expel some of your diplomats. You got to do something in return. I totally get that. I'm just asking for it to be basically reasonable. That way we're not forced to then escalate more pressure on you. We'd like when our administration gets in to kind of have a clean slate, be able to work to fight Islamic terrorism. What is wrong with that statement again? That's why Flynn got railroaded, though. Right there, that statement. It's unbelievable. I could show you 5 instances. Like, we could look at, what about Yovanovitch and company talking to the Ukraine, telling them what cases they had to drop. It's George Soros-connected people that they had to drop cases against the anti-C in the Ukraine. That was okay. It was okay for her to do that. What about Obama saying, hey, after I'm caught in a hot mic, after I'm elected, I'll have more flexibility? That was okay. All of this stuff we constantly see. Democrats, I mean, there was an incident earlier where I think you saw Democrats that were going, I didn't have a problem with this. Tulsi Gabbard went and talked to Assad. Was that also a violation of the Logan Act? She wasn't a member of the executive branch. We've seen people like Schumer and other people in the Democratic Party talk to other world leaders. Is that a violation of the Logan Act? Keep in mind, no one's ever been charged with this. No one. We see Americans all the time. Civilians. That's what the Logan Act says. As a civilian, you can't talk to hostile foreign powers and try to influence policy. We see that happen all the time. You don't think Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and company are doing things like that? That's what's going on. They wanted hostile relationships with Russia, just like they wanted it with Syria, just like they wanted it with Libya, just like they wanted it with Iraq, just like they want it with Afghanistan. That's what the warmongers in the establishment want. And Trump was someone that was coming in that, God forbid, his big sin might be, oh my God, he might want decent relationships with Russia. We can't have that. How can we drum up the fear-mongering military-industrial complex? Oh my goodness. Oh, and he was against the Iran deal, where Obama and his Secretary of State, John Kerry, admitted that they sent billions of dollars that would make it in the hands of terrorism. So if you or a loved one has fought terrorism overseas, just remember the Obama administration was financing the very people that your family was fighting. They admitted it. Do you think there wasn't conversations when Obama administration was coming in 2008? Do you think him and his team weren't talking to foreign leaders as they were coming in? Of course they were. Every administration does it. And I don't even blame them. They should be. Who in their right mind would want it to be like, okay, until you've won the election, but until you're sworn in, you're not allowed to talk to any other world leaders. Your first day just has to be picking up the phone. Hi, I'm the president, or I work on the president's cabinet. Nice to get to know you. Wouldn't that be nice? We'd have a 3-month period where nothing's getting done. Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I know the civil unrest is going to get bad. And, the amazing thing is talking to people and how they've interpreted some of my takes as somehow hostile, because I am someone who's for small government. So, for example, I was like, why wouldn't we want the National Guard to come in? Of course they should. If the local police are outmatched so bad by domestic terrorism, I would expect the National Guard to come in. I absolutely would. I was told by like-minded small government people that's a huge mistake. Instead, we should just, I guess the implication is this. If the police lose in a city, that's it. The city's done. Now the anarchists control it. We have to accept that. Because if the National Guard comes in, they might come after me tomorrow. That's what I was told. They could label me a terrorist and come after me. What's to stop them from doing that already? We already hear reports during the Obama administration on, potential terrorists or people that talk about the Constitution and liberty. So now, because we're worried that some corrupt Democrat or some corrupt establishment person in the future might improperly use our military against us, we just have to leave our cities burned then. Oh, sorry. How stupid is that? All of these takes that I've just read you, I can't believe. I want to real quick go back to the Flynn thing. This is a classic tactic. And let me criticize the Republicans here for a minute. Because they've lost the narrative so much, because they've left academia, Silicon Valley, the entertainment industry, and the mainstream media be so dominated by the establishment, and particularly the establishment Democrats. Literally, one of the things that's done now is you could release a piece of paper, an official document from a phone call. You could have an official document signed by Obama, notarized. Obama saying, I'm going to illegally spy on Michael Flynn. Do it. Do whatever you can to take him down. And the Democrats would look at that document and say, see, this is proof Obama did nothing wrong. It says he didn't illegally spy. And you'd be like, no, it literally says, I want to illegally spy on Flynn. They'd say, no, it doesn't. You're wrong. And Jake Tapper would come on and go, oh, this proves conspiracy theorists in the Republican Party are wrong. All these Trump supporters are conspiracy theorists. That's what it proves. And the entertainment industry would come out and they'd say, you'd have commercials with this cast of the Avengers going, finally, the documents from Obama have been released showing that he didn't do anything illegal. And you'd say, but it says right there, he's saying illegally spy on Flynn. Nope, it says the opposite of that. That's what it says. We're right. We control the narrative. You're racist if you disagree. And half the Republicans would go, oh, no, we're not racist. We're sorry. We're sorry to bother you. We're sorry. Yeah, let's bring Don Jr. in to investigate him again. Let's investigate Devin Nunes again. You're right. We're sorry. We're sorry. And Silicon Valley would censor people that you're like, but wait a minute. Here's the transcript. I'm going to highlight right here. It says, Obama says illegally spy on Flynn. And Twitter would say, nah, we got to censor that. Sorry. That's fake. We fact-checked that with the Washington Post and CNN, and they said that's wrong. That's where we're at as a country. What chance do we have? What chance do we have of surviving when literally so many people in positions of power could look at a document that every American could look at that says one thing and they claim it says the exact opposite? Go ahead, go to Twitter right now and watch the tens of thousands of likes that blue checkmark Twitter people are getting for reading the Flynn transcripts and going, yep, this proves Flynn committed treason. This proves that Flynn should have been investigated. When it does the exact opposite. Thanks, Anon. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know that, look, here's what keeps me safe is that I'm small time. You know, I got 8 people watching right now. That's fine. I really mean this. If you've been with me a long time, I appreciate each and every one of you. I wouldn't care if there's one person listening here. Plus, my wife likes it because if you guys aren't listening, then I'm ranting to her, and she's not a big fan. So, you know, I'll be doing it no matter how many people I reach. But they're not coming after me. They just shadow ban me and censor me and whatever and all these platforms. That's fine. I'm still going to do my best. I'm still going to run for office. I'm still talking to people that are in positions of office. Like, you might not know this about me, but I actually have political officials call me and ask for advice on things like the COVID lockdowns and things like that. That happens. And I'm honored to do it because I don't get a dime for it, not a dime, but that's fine. Because I care about this country and I'm doing what I think's right. So, but what do we do when we can't even agree on words on a page? Hi, my name's Rob. No, it's not. Here's my birth certificate saying my name's Robert. No, it doesn't say that. It says your name's Larry. What are you talking about? It says Robert. No, it doesn't. By the way, we'll censor you for saying it says Robert, and we're going to have our mainstream media say it doesn't say Robert, and we're going to have the entertainment industry say you're a liar and a racist for saying your name's Robert, and Silicon Valley will censor you, and academia will have them say people that say that their name's Robert are all clearly lying and racist. What do you do? That's how silly it's becoming. And I know my example there is hyperbolic, but literally that's where we're going. And it's straight out. I mean, I hate to keep harping on this point, but go back and read the dystopian novels like George Orwell's 1984. This is what he calls doublethink, where literally the truth is a lie. War is peace. This is happening all over. Like, there are basic truths that the establishment prevailing narrative says that the inverse is true. For example, we know that if men and women compete in most sports that involve physical activities, that on average, men have a competitive advantage. We can't say that. We know that a man can't just put on a dress or have some sort of surgery and that makes him a woman. We know that that's a lie. You can't say that. You'll get banned from Twitter for saying that. These are obvious truths. We know that if you're a woman or some sort of minority and you're running for a political position, you have an advantage. We can't say that. We have to pretend the opposite's true. We know that these establishment Democrats that are the party of the extremely wealthy, we could look at the data and see the extremely wealthy vote Democrat. We have to say the opposite. The rich people all vote Republican. Even though we know that's not true. We know that the truth is, and I don't say this as a racist, I've explained myself a million times, I don't think it's because of the ethnicity, but we know the truth is that black people, particularly those in the inner city, commit violent crimes way more per capita than white people. And when it comes to cross-racial crimes, the statistics vary year to year, but anywhere from 23 to 27 times more likely for a black person to commit a violent crime against a white than vice versa. But we have to pretend it's the opposite. The country's racist. It's a bunch of white people attacking black people. All of these things. We have to pretend that illegal immigrants, that by the very fact that they're illegal, broke the law, commit less crime than actual Americans. We have to pretend that illegal immigrants that are burning the American flag and raising Mexican flags are more American than the Americans here. We have to say that the people that want to open businesses just for livelihood are criminals, but the criminals that want to loot and rob the businesses are freedom fighters and great Americans. We have to pretend that people that wanted to go and peacefully protest about the Second Amendment in Virginia or about the lockdown in Michigan or in Pennsylvania, they're domestic terrorists and Nazis, but those that are looting Target and burning down police stations are freedom fighters. Okay, Irish boy. Am I Irish? I don't even know. I never really paid attention. I think I have part Irish in me, part Italian. I could care less. So, show my criminal history. I was pled guilty to disorderly conduct when I was 16 because I got in a fist fight. There's my criminal history. No, I will not be going to the riots. Do I like Lucky Charms and potatoes? Yes. Thank you, America First. I really appreciate it. For those of you who can't see, that's what's the conversation on Periscope. But feel free to join in the conversation, Pacho, even if you disagree with me. I don't mind at all. I think it's better when we have people that disagree. You may put on a green hat. Okay? Anyways, that's what we're dealing with. The truth is a lie. Now they could look at documents. The Mueller report. Like, it's still part of the official narrative because they repeated it so many times. Jimmy Fallon repeated it, and, people in Hollywood repeated it, and people at universities repeated it, and people in Silicon Valley repeated it, and people in the mainstream media repeated it, and the Democratic Party repeated it. Over and over, they said Bill Barr's summary of the Mueller report was a complete lie. What did Bill Barr say? Here was his summary. It was like 3 sentences. He said they were not able to prove that there was anybody in Trump's campaign or any American that illegally conspired with Russia to influence the election. As to the question of obstruction to justice, they were unable to make a determination. That's what Barr said. That's exactly what the Mueller report said. That was the summary of it. But we have to believe that that's not true, that Bill Barr lied. People still say there was proof that there was a crime of collusion outlined in the Mueller report. There's not, you're like, where? It specifically says there was none. Please show me where. And in fact, the fact that it said, right, and no one ever got this. This is how bad the Republicans are with the narrative. Now think of this. Mueller's trying to decide on 2 crimes. And on one crime of collusion, he says, or illegally conspiring, he says, we are unable to have confidence that there was any crime like this committed by Trump, anyone associated to Trump, or any American. That's what he says. Then on obstruction of justice, he says, we can't determine whether or not, we're not taking a stance on whether or not a crime was committed, but we're not saying we exonerated Trump. So implicitly, if you're saying on part 2, we're coming out and saying we didn't exonerate Trump, and the Democrats went, oh boy, that proves Trump's guilty. Okay, but he didn't say that in part 1. He didn't say we can't exonerate Trump or his team. He said we can't charge any crime. We don't see any crime here, which is an implicit exoneration. Yet still to this day, over 50% of the people polled that are Democrats think the Steele dossier is true. Thoroughly debunked. They think it's true. I mean, what can you do when their own investigators show you could look at the words they said and they're like, no, those words don't say what you were claiming they said. I argued with someone the other day, the IG that was requested, Horowitz, who was requested first by the Democrats to look into this stuff. He showed things like, for example, the FBI manufactured evidence. They changed an email to say the opposite of what it said to be able to spy on Carter Page and Trump's campaign. That's said in the IG report. I tell that to left-wing people. They're like, no, it doesn't say that. I'm like, yeah, here it says it right here. I could show you the line, the page number. No, it doesn't say that. But it's right here. No, it doesn't say that. It's the old Shaggy defense. You remember that song? I don't remember all the words, but baby call me red-handed, banging on the bathroom floor. And what's Shaggy say? Wasn't me. She caught me banging on the bathroom. Wasn't me. Changing emails to spy on Trump. Wasn't me. Riots going on in Minneapolis. Wasn't me. Spying on Flynn illegally. Wasn't me. That's it. That's all they have to say. Oh, there it is. Wasn't me. Go get him, Jake Tapper. Get him, Cuomo. Get him, Schumer. You got it. Hey, university. Let's get him in Harvard, Yale, whatever. Get him in there. Wasn't them. It's laughable at this point. It's laughable. The arguments I have, they're literally burning cities down right now. There are people, we have to believe this is a racist country. I talked to someone that said, just on Twitter, you can go to my Twitter feed and see this. I'm not going to bring up their name. I asked them to come on the show. They wouldn't do it. Then they just troll me. So here's some of the big brain takes they had. You ready for this? One, I read the Flynn transcripts. He clearly broke the law. What law? Yeah, the law was broken. What law? Yeah, it was broken. Can you explain what law? Yeah, it was broken. Okay, so you can't point to the law. So can you explain to me why the Democrats weren't upset when this is what he said. He clearly wasn't a member of the executive branch, and he was talking with the foreign power, so it's breaking the law. Okay, so then why was the Democrats silent on John Kerry doing that? This person's defense is, well, here's the difference. The crime is that Flynn was in an incoming administration, so he wasn't allowed to talk to his foreign counterparts. But because John Kerry's not in the incoming administration, he can undermine America all he wants. I say, can you point me to the law where it suggests that? And their response is, that's proof that I don't know what I'm talking about. I had someone tell me, who I consider a smart left-wing person, that they can't make the claim. They can't say that it's corrupt for the FBI to manufacture evidence to spy on someone. They can't say that's corrupt unless CNN tells them. because the mainstream media are professionals. I had the first person I was talking about, they told me today that it is not right. I'm the racist if I don't agree with the presupposition that we shouldn't allow white people in Minneapolis. That makes me a racist. I mean, what? How do you deal with it? How can I have a serious... And I'm like, dude, you want to come on the show and talk about this? No. What are you talking about? And that's how these people are. They are prideful of their ignorance. They take pride in it. It's surreal. Not everyone on the left is like this, by the way. You can see people like, Tim Pool or Dave Rubin or, Michael Tracy, as much as I disagree with them on some things, Aaron Mattei, Jimmy Dore, others. They could look at stuff. You might disagree. You might find some things that, look, they would think I'm illogical on some things. But at least you could have a conversation with those people. What do you say to someone that you look at a piece of paper and they're like, yeah, that says the opposite of what you're reading it as? That's it. That's the end of the conversation. Now, why am I ranting on this so much? What does this have to do with the riots that we see right now? What's the chances of working this out peacefully? If the indoctrination is so bad that two people could look at the same piece of paper with one sentence on it and one say, the sentence says my name is Rob, and the other say, no, it doesn't say that. The sentence says my name is Larry. And you're like, but R-O-B, that's Rob. No, that's Larry. What are the chances then that those two people are going to come to a like mind on, is this country massively racist? If you can't, the base level is we have to agree that when we read something, it means what it means. That's why language is so important in evolution. We have to be able to communicate with something that we can understand. Communication is a messenger coding a message, sending it out, and then the listener being able to correctly interpret that code and processing it. If you encode a message, send it out, and the listener thinks that message says something completely different than what you just said, how can you have a conversation? How can you have communication? Now, it's bad enough when we're talking about complicated things like philosophy or political ideology, but when you can't even read the same words on a page? Joe Biden said quid pro quo. Right? He offered a quid pro quo. We heard it. We have proof of it. We've released the calls from the Ukrainian president with his calls with Joe Biden. He literally says, you're not getting this money unless you fire the prosecutor. The definition of a quid pro quo. And still, half of this country is like, that's not a quid pro quo. We can't agree as a country on whether or not burning down buildings and looting is bad. This is what I was saying before during the impeachment thing. I said, if we as a country can't agree on this statement, if someone in the executive office uses a huge sum of money of taxpayer dollars, such as $1 billion, to force another country to fire someone, a prosecutor, who's looking into their family's business, there should be an investigation. I don't care if your name's Bush, Cheney, Obama, Biden, Rumsfeld. It doesn't matter. Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. And if you're innocent of that, you could say, yeah, I'd see how that looked bad. I used $1 billion taxpayer dollars to force this prosecutor fired that was looking at a company my son was the CEO or on the board of directors of. I understand that looks bad. Please, by all means, investigate it. But no, that's not what they did. If we can't agree on that, if you say, well, I think that not only should Joe Biden or Donald Trump or, Joe Biden or Mike Pence or Trump, I think they should be allowed to use taxpayer dollars to force the firing of prosecutors looking at their son's company. I think they should. Oh, but only if it's the Democrat. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it when I said Trump and Pence. How can we have a conversation? How can we have a conversation when the argument is the big sin that Trump committed that these people, many of them called treasonous, which warrants the death penalty, was they tried to get dirt on Hillary from Russians, when we know for a fact that Hillary got dirt on Trump from Kremlin officials. But it was okay for her to get the dirt from the Kremlin, but not for Trump. How can you have where's the common ground that we could begin to have a discussion? But now it's even worse than that. Hell, we just made it way simpler than that. Hey, I don't think that you should burn down cities and people's homes and people's working places and businesses that they own. I don't think you should do that because you're mad about a police officer. I think that's really bad. And there's a lot of the country that says, no, that's good. That's a good thing. Including that person I just told you I was talking about on Twitter. So what? They burnt down Target. Target closed their doors to the community. They deserve to be burnt down. Okay, what about the report of the black business owner that was a firefighter and opened his own bar? His business got burnt down. What What about the low-income housing that got burnt down? Yeah, they don't care. These same people would be the first to flip out and cry if these looters came to their neighborhood. Say they live in gated communities or they live far away from the inner city. So it's like, yeah, burn down the inner city to prove your point. In fact, many of the people that are burning it down, I know a lot of people, well, they're coming from outside the community. Here's a big take. You want to hear another big take I had? When I called these people domestic terrorists on a website that I was on, here's one of the first things that someone disagreed with me. He said, you ready for this? Oh, because they're all black people. Now, I didn't mention race one time in my comment about the rioters should be punished. In fact, I knew watching it, and one of the comments I was making all last night when I was watching it was how many outside people there clearly was, a bunch of white people, a bunch of people that had headsets on and things like that were clearly professional agitators and rioters from outside. Many of the people I saw trying to coordinate the riots were white people. They would be the worst of the worst. What does skin color have to do with it anyways? I don't know. But I was accused of being a racist. It's now racism to say, I think rioting and looting is a bad thing. That's racism now, according to the left. It's racism to say that. I would contend that if I say rioting is bad and you say, oh, because you hate black people, you're the racist. Because when I said the word riot, in your head you said, oh, it has to be black people. Why would you think that? Of course, no response. None. Now, I know one of the takes, and I do apologize. This is how I talk. I'm mad, don't get me wrong, but this isn't me yelling or screaming. But I know one of the big takes I get all the time is, Rob, you get too angry about this. How could you not be angry? We could be watching the end of our country. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but if I would have told you 4 months ago that even under the Trump administration, you would be locked down in your home for all intents and purposes, millions of people would lose their job because the government told them they couldn't go to work, you would have said I was nuts, many of you. I know we've seen riots like this before in Ferguson and after Trump won. Here's another truth, along with the racism thing. You want to know one of the defenses that people are trying to do now in these places that are rioting? They're nailing in the front of their homes or businesses, minority owned. Now, I'm not someone who talks about the Bible very often, but doesn't that sound biblical? Remember that old story about Egypt in the Old Testament? Where the Israelites put lamb's blood on their doors so that the plague wouldn't kill people's firstborn child? I believe they call that Passover. Now, instead of lamb's blood, you have to put that, I'm not white, please, I'm not white, please spare me, I'm not white. You hear the protesters, when there's audio there, talking about, kill them white folks, kill white people. Imagine if this was, do you think, for example, if a bunch of skinheads would say, we're going to riot in Bisbee, Arizona, we're going to burn it down, they overrun the police, you think the police are standing down to a bunch of neo-Nazis or Klansmen? You think they'd do that? Or you think they'd use force to defend themselves? I know what they would do. They'd use force to defend themselves. And they would have widespread adulation amongst the CNNs and the New York Times and the Democrats. They would say, yes, those were domestic terrorists. You were right to stop them. They could have killed someone. That's what they would say. You think they'd be called heroes today? Go back and look. Say that happened in Dallas. Go back and look. Go just yesterday. 2-minute video I put up. A Tony Timpa. In fact, let me see if I can bring it up for you. Let's watch a little of this, okay? Now, here's why I presented this video. Okay, and this is important, right? And I'm just going to show a little of it. If you go to my actual video, which I'll try to put a link up, you can see the 6-minute video. It's disturbing, and I warn you, this is going to be disturbing what you're about to see. This was a white man who was a schizophrenic who called the police on himself. Before the police arrived, security guards already had him handcuffed. Let me get it set up for you. So here, if you're watching somewhere where you can see, oh, I'm lagging a little. Well, hopefully this doesn't cause me to lag more. Okay. Now, I want you to watch this, right? This happened in 2016 in Dallas. Here's the end of the story. None of the cops were criminally charged, okay? They withheld the footage for 3 years. So it wasn't until 2019 that we were able to see the footage. Look at that handsome guy, huh? I'll leave it windowed mode. What those police in Minneapolis did to George Floyd is despicable, and they deserve to go to jail for murder as far as I'm concerned. However, what's also despicable is how we see the Democrats and the media trying to paint this picture as racist and create racial division so that they could drum up power and support and be able to win elections. It is absolutely disgusting, and I could prove that they're doing this in a hypocritical way. Did you know that in 2016, police officers in Dallas did a very similar thing? A schizophrenic man called the police for help, and they came, pinned him on the ground with their knee in the back of their back and neck to the point where he suffocated and died and was ruled murder. None of those police ended up facing any sort of criminal charges. Do you remember the media and Dems calling for riots? Do you remember those riots occurring? Of course not. Now I'm going to show you some of this video as you could hear them laughing as they murder this white man, and you can make your own mind up. So I warn you, this is very disturbing.
Tony.
Tony! Tony! Time for school. Wake up.
I don't want to go to school, Mom.
First day, you can't be late.
Tony.
I'll link the video below so you can see, but they murdered that man and are sitting there joking. The media and the Democrats, the Al Sharptons, they didn't scream this was racism against white people. LeBron James wasn't saying shows that the country's racist against white people. It goes to show you how hypocritical they are, and they don't actually care about George Floyd being dead. They only care about using it as a token to get power. Now, here's the deal. I didn't make that video as a tit for tat, like, oh, white people, as a white person, I'm afraid of police. That's not what's going on there. I made that video to show if the argument is one video, one incident proves that whatever the race of that person that was killed, the police are racist against that race, then why isn't it true when a white person dies in a very similar way? In fact, that video is even worse if you watch it the whole way through, arguably, because they laugh and mock him. What they were laughing about in that section there, they were saying, it's first day of school, gotta go to school. Because they're making fun of him because he has mental impairments. That's what they're doing. They keep talking about giving him a Green Oaks cocktail because Green Oaks is the psychiatric ward, and they're laughing about that the whole time. Where was the outrage? Where was Al Sharpton? Where was Ice Cube and Ice-T saying it was time to fight back? No one said that, those police were clearly racist against white people. That never even came up. Again, this isn't to belittle the death of George Floyd. I've talked about how heinous it is. The point is, the people that are pushing that story are doing so to fan division and racial animus. And it's predictably causing these riots that tonight we're seeing again everywhere. Oh, the National Guard retreated from the riot area. Good stuff. Good stuff. That was another take I had. I was telling you. I had people that are libertarian minded tell me, oh, you can't send the National Guard in. That's overkill. Well, they're getting ran out. Yep, you're absolutely right, Locke. It's terrible what they did. Not one criminal charge for those police. Unlike this guy we see now that's been criminally charged that murdered George Floyd. Huh. Isn't that weird? Yeah, the full thing, and you're right, Locke. Thanks for bringing that up. I posted there. Go to the YouTube channel or that YouTube video I just watched. Check out the description. The full video's there. I didn't want to play the full video here because I thought it would be overkill. Right, it was murder by a cop, but there's no proof it was racism. And even if it was one cop being racist, how's that indicative that the country is racist? Again, the data shows, the best study from this was in 2016 or 17 by Harvard by a black professor who assumed he would find that per capita, unarmed black men were shot way more by police than unarmed white people. In fact, the data shows it's the opposite. It's almost equal, but in fact, it's slightly more that unarmed white people are shot more than unarmed black people. How could that be? Hey, thanks for the donation. Thank you. I appreciate it. The donations are really appreciated so I get some new equipment and be lagging less. So, but we just jumped to the conclusion it's racism. What if I'd say this, and I talk about this a lot. What if I would say it was sexism? Oh, the reason that George Floyd was killed because he was a man. And police across this country are sexist. And this country's misandrist. It hates men. The whole country hates men. That's why men are killed by cops way more than women. It hates men. People would say, what? What are you talking about? How isn't that more true? More men die than women, than the difference between black to white. In fact, actually, more white people are killed. Now, of course, by police. Of course, that makes sense. There's more white people in the country. What's academia like in my country? It's terrible. It's completely dominated by extreme leftists. For example, I was in policy debate, which is supposed to be, as far as academic students, the best of the best. It's supposed to be some of the most intelligent. When I was there from the years of 2003 till 2008, I debated, I think was the years, but then I stayed in the community for 3 years afterwards as a judge and a coach. You can't even imagine. You can't imagine how extreme left-wing it was. It was nothing to walk into a room and be told, you're white, you should be killed. White people don't deserve to exist. You're a man, you don't deserve to exist. Now, I don't mind that in the context of the game. You can say whatever you want, but they would make it personal. They would talk about you as an individual, how you specifically, by the nature of your skin color, are racist. It's unbelievable when you would say, hey, there are rules to debate, like something as simple as this. The topic was supposed to be about corn subsidies. Well, what is me being racist? What are you claiming? What does this have to do with the topic? They would say then, and this is a common argument, I'm not making this up, oh, you're the same as the slave master tying the black man to the post to whip him. When you ask a black person to follow the rules, you're whipping them all over again. Common rule. So you had to be like, oh, I'm sorry. No, you don't have to follow the rules. That's academia. You could major in whiteness, the evils of whiteness, all sorts of things. Do you think there's a major on the evils of blackness? You can get majors on the evil of the patriarchy and men. You think you can get majors on the evil of femininity and women? No. It's one-sided garbage. It's particularly the humanities. There's still some hope in the hard sciences, but they're coming for them as well. Oh, that's good. Very good. First weight joke of the day from Periscope, overeating. I don't overeat. I'm just preparing for a long winter. I'm a firm believer in the next ice age. So fat guys with tons of body hair like me will be the alpha males then. So in the UK, when we make a hypothesis, we're supposed to set out to prove the negative. So did he believe his hypothesis? Is it different in the US? Yeah, it is different. Like you could see, for example, everything's inverted. Look, follow white rules, slub. I don't know what you're talking about. If you want to have a serious conversation, I will. Otherwise, feel free to insult. You're talking to yourself other than me because no one else is on Periscope, but have at her, bud. So, which is also a common tactic that you see from these leftists. They have nothing to say, so they'll just come on and make insults or something. I don't mind the insults, but at least try to be original about it. But I guess, yeah, I mean, for example, Lockroad, that's what you would... For example, before you take an action, you must prove that that action is warranted, right? That would be a basic academic thought that you would have. So before we'd lock down, we would prove that the lockdown was necessary to stop against the virus. Instead, we've inverted that. Instead, it was, we will lock down, and now you have to prove that we shouldn't lock down. That's constantly the case. You're a racist, prove that you're not. Brett Kavanaugh's a rapist, prove that he's not. That's what we see. It started in academia, and it's certainly now applying to the real world. So what we end up seeing then is this community, like all of these arguments that I was talking about, how the truth is a lie and things like that. So I'm going to head out here shortly, but yeah, it's really disturbing. You see these cities burning down now. Just remember, I've criticized Trump. I criticize the Republicans. I'll still continue to do that. But this is what the establishment wants. They want the end of the United States. They want the end of the working class. That's what the lockdown was about. That's why they're saying the country is racist. It should burn to the ground. They're giving lip service to that. They say peaceful protesters protesting for the Bill of Rights or people wanting to go to church are dangerous. But the people that are lighting things on fire, they're peaceful Americans. That's the arguments they make. By the way, what I was suggesting to business leaders today is if you're in a place that's still locked down, open your business tomorrow and say the reason you're opening your business is because you support the rioters that are rioting over George Floyd. I'm opening my barber shop because I hate the police because they're racist and I support the rioters in Minneapolis. Then the police will leave you alone and the Democrats will applaud you. Then you can open your business and go back to work. Because remember, the virus was going to kill us all if we went to work or if we went to church. Well, now all of a sudden that's not a priority when all these riots. I didn't see much social distancing at the riots. But that's cool because CNN and the New York Times, now they're not focused on that. They think these are noble, great people out there rioting right now. The social distancing doesn't matter. Now, if you just peacefully protest because you lost your job, you are a terrible person. If you peacefully protest and tried to go to church, you're a terrible person that's causing deaths and spreading the virus. But these people that are rioting, they're great because the virus knows. The virus only wants to infect people that have jobs and are upset about losing their job. If you're rioting, then the virus knows not to get into you. So that's what's going on. And look, the other thing it's important to say is, keep in mind that we see they're rioting right now outside of CNN's headquarters. So I get, like, for example, this person on Periscope right now that's insulting me. Clearly he's a bootlicker, left wing, hey, rioters, good. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's fine to be here. And I really hope you come and talk more often. I don't mind even if you're insulting me. Fine by me. But just because you're a bootlicker doesn't mean you'll be spared, right? The communists told us, those academic types that are defending communism, they get the bullet first. They get lined up against the wall first. We can see it at CNN. They'll never be able, they created this monster. They inflamed racial tensions. They'll be eaten up at, just like the academics are. All of these people you see, professors at Harvard or administrators at Harvard, they get eaten alive by the very monster they created. They think, oh, if I just bow down to it so much. Thank you, by the way, Danova. Am I pronouncing? Danova, yeah. Danova, sorry. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But they'll be eaten too. So CNN, I bet the same CNN anchors last night that were saying, you remember you saw that one guy saying, mostly it's a peaceful protest, as you saw the flames coming from behind him. I bet they wouldn't be very happy if it was their homes. By the way, I don't wish it to be their homes. I don't wish it at all. I don't think anyone, even those that I disagree with, should have to have their communities go through a riot like this. I really don't. I mean that. And so I tweeted out to CNN and I said, it's unfortunate. I'm sorry that you now have to see. I bet your perspective changes once it's your business or it's your home. All of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. We're not racist. Why are you burning down my stuff? Too late. You thought it was cool when it was happening to other people. But again, I'll defend you because I'm not a hypocrite that says it's okay to destroy property or harm people if it's people that I don't care for. Right. I mean, you're right. The easiest thing for these leftists is just to agree with them and then they have to switch their position. And that's absolutely true. I mean, they're actually cheering against hydrochloroquine as a potential cure for COVID because they're afraid it would help Trump's election chances. Politico put out an article that said Democrats are worried that if we lift the lockdown too soon, the economy will rebound before November and that could help Trump's chances. Imagine being a leader. I don't care what party you're in. Like, wouldn't your first priority, if you really believed this virus was the apocalyptic thing that you claimed, wouldn't you say, my God, I just want to save lives and do what I can in my position right now to do the best to save the most lives in this country? Imagine it entering into your brain, oh, but I don't want to save too many lives. I don't want to make the situation better, too good, or else Trump might get credit and it could hurt my election chances. Imagine what it takes to think that. So, I mean, it's nonsense. So, all right, I do have to get it heading out. So I got my radio show tomorrow. I'm not sure what it'll be. I'll put a video out tonight or tomorrow morning, but that's at 11 a.m. Hey, Paul, thanks so much, man. I'll get your shirt in the mail to you soon here. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's been too late for many. I know. It's the same here, man, in Clarion County. Businesses that will never open up again. Over what? What was the number? I forget what it was in Clarion County. 2 people dead, 26 infected. Devastated the county. We'll be fighting back for 10 years. 2 people dead. More people have died in car wrecks and overdoses during these months. But we had to shut it down. So, stay safe out there wherever you're at. Just remember, the theme of this is there's so much evidence coming out tonight. They're liars. They'll look directly at they'll look directly at documents and say they say the opposite of the truth. That is the establishment. I can't stress this enough. I don't mean your neighbor down the street that's a Democrat. You might have disagreements with them, but give them the benefit of the doubt. It's probably just out of you think that they're wrong or they're ignorant. They think the same of you. But the people running the Democratic Party, many of the people that are at the top of the Republican Party too, your Romneys, your Ryans, your Rubios, they're involved in this establishment. This, what you see tonight, is what they want for this country. That's what we're fighting against. They want the country to burn. They want your rights taken away and you locked down. They want you censored so you can't say anything. That's what they want. They want to be able to use law enforcement and the intelligence agencies to spy on you whenever they want. That's what they want. So Just remember that. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much. Even those that were making fun of me, I really appreciate it. You guys are the best. I really, seriously, even people are picking on me. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Please, if you can, if you want to support me, thank you to all those that donated money to me. I do really appreciate that. If you don't have money and want to support me, please share my videos. Please follow me on places like DLive. I think there should be a link in the description. Also, I started on locals.com. It's a site ran by Dave Rubin that's supposed to be non-censorious, so you can be left-wing or right-wing on there. Check that out, normalamerica.locals.com. Check me out in there. And my short form videos, if you could share those with people, I'd really appreciate it. So thank you all so much, especially you guys on Periscope too. Thanks so much for being here. So you guys are the best. Stay safe out there, and as always, have a good one.